Welcome back to Inside Valley Politics. I'm joined today by Frank Lozano. He's the Republican candidate for 107th District Court in Cameron County. I want to thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, this is not the first time that you have run for office. Why did you want to run for district judge, and why should voters agree with you that you're the right candidate?
So I feel that our community has a very strong need for conservative constitutional justice. It aligns with our values, our family values, our small business values, our economic growth values. And these are the reasons that I ran previously, and this is the reason that I'm running for this position specifically. We have 9 district courts here in Cameron County that sit in Brownsville, and it's all a uniparty currently, and I believe that diversity of thought is an important feature of our government, and it's something that's necessary and something that's needed and something that is wanted by our community.
That's definitely something that I'm going to get to in a minute. But on your campaign website, you say every decision is guided by the Constitution and rule of law. Is that not what we should expect from all judges?
We should expect that from all judges, and I think it's provided by most judges. However, I think it can be more refined and more intellectual. I believe that I carry a very conservative and very strongly held belief in our constitutional system. I think it's what makes our country the greatest country in the world, and I think it's what's helped us. We look just across the border at Mexico, and one of the deficiencies they have is due to their weaker judicial system, one that you might not know what outcome you might receive over there, whereas here we want predictability, and we only get that by having strong constitutional principles, and that's something I bring to the race.
Are we not getting that in district courts here in Cameron County?
We're getting that, but we can always get more.
Okay. So just jump ahead then onto your FAQ section of your website. You pose the question of why should voters elect a Republican when all the others are Democrats, and that having a diversity of viewpoints, like you mentioned earlier, will encourage fairer decisions. What do you mean by diversity of viewpoints?
Like I said, I'm a constitutional conservative. I think that's something that Republicans are very strong on. It's something that I'm certainly always cognizant of whenever in my professional life and in making future decisions on the bench. Currently, when you have any uniparty, when you have any sort of oligarchy, when you have an establishment control or a monopolization of any type of political system, you can run into corruption. That doesn't necessarily mean that it exists presently. However, it can creep into decisions if it's unchecked. So even having simply one Republican judge on the bench is going to make a difference in Cameron County. It's going to make a difference in the Valley.
I guess my question is, are Democratic judges making the wrong decisions, and then you saying, being a Republican, a constitutional conservative, you're going to make the correct decisions?
Well, I'll always make the correct decisions. I can't speak to every other ruling that any other judge makes necessarily. However, I do know that as long as you follow the Constitution, as long as you apply the law as it is written by our legislators, then you're not going to be able to go wrong.
And you say that on your website as well, that you've worked as both a prosecutor and a public defender. Is it something that's necessary, do you think, to be a judge?
It's not necessary, however, it is important to have both viewpoints. The district courts hear all types of felonies, from state jail felonies all the way up to capital felonies potentially. And it's important to know both sides of the issue, so that way you can make an informed decision, and the best decision not just for the community but for the individual coming before the court.
And you think that diversity of thought, as it were, being on both sides of the aisle, makes you the better candidate or better option?
Well, what you want in a judge is you want someone who's fair and impartial more than anything else. And you get that by seeing both sides of the issue and walking in each person's shoes, so to speak. And that's done through my experience and through looking at each case on its individual merits, but also on what the law is written and what our legislators intended for it to be ruled on.
Your opponent in November is going to be Democrat Noe Garza, who also has been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. What is it that you see about his candidacy that makes you think that you are the better choice? Setting aside the fairness, the fairer rulings, or the constitutionality of it, because that's something that you would assume most judges are going to apply when they get to the bench. Why should people choose you?
Right, and one thing I tell all my constituents is I'm not running against a specific person. I'm running against the establishment, essentially. I'm a populist. I believe in serving the people, and that's something that I intend to do from the bench. My opponent has a lot of experience and a lot of network and a lot of ties to the community. But sometimes it's best not to have the big names or the same families running everything. Sometimes it's better to have an independent voice, and I think fairness and impartiality stems from independence and being able to make decisions without fear, without favor.
You also mentioned that same issue, that big name, and it's not necessarily how long you've practiced law or the big name that you have, and the compadre system that you mentioned on your website as well. Are things a little too intertwined?
I think that's been a problem that we've seen in the Valley for a long time. There has been a history of corruption. We have had judges who have gone to federal prison. We have had attorneys who have gone to federal prison. And that corruption stems from a compadre system, a complacency system. I mention a lot the difference between the Mexican side of the border and the U.S. side of the border. We all are the same people, we have the same heritage, the same culture, but there is a stark divide, and that divide has to come from somewhere, and I believe that somewhere is from the judicial system. It's what protects our society, it's what allows flourishing of small businesses. You don't want to invest where there's a lot of crime, where there's a lot of instability. You want to invest where there's predictability and where you can count on judges to apply the law fairly and impartially.
You've laid out a series of steps that you'd like to take to streamline the judicial process. What is slowing it down?
Well, there's a lot of backlog, and I believe that one of the most important things any public servant can do is be judicious of our taxpayer resources. At the end of the day, it's our taxpayers, it's our property owners that are paying for all of this. And as a public servant, we always have to bring them first and foremost to mind. And what we need to do is streamline justice. We need to make sure we're dropping cases that aren't being moved on. We want to make sure that we're reaching justice quickly and fairly. Justice delayed is justice denied.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. That is Frank Lozano. He's the Republican candidate for the 107th District Court in Cameron County. And we'll be right back after this.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.